This is the Parliament Channel and Parliament Radio 105.5 FM.
Without further ado, we take you over to the Parliament Chamber for the start of today's proceedings.
The Honourable the Speaker.
We welcome you to the 13th National Youth Parliament that takes place on Monday, November 9th, 2015.
For the prayer. Almighty God, creator of the universe and all that is in it, we graciously thank you for your numerous blessings bestowed upon us. As we gather here today as future leaders of this great republic, we look towards you for guidance and wisdom in our deliberation during the sitting of the National Youth Parliament. We ask for wisdom in governance, strength for all our leaders, and healings of wounds of separation, of division. Open our hearts to accept the truth and demonstrate love always, so that we and all citizens of this nation can live in harmony together. Amen. Namaste.
Announcements by the Speaker. Papers.
The Honourable Leader of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to lay on the table the following paper, the report of the 12th National Youth Parliamentary Debate 2014.
Questions to ministers. Requests for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers. Personal explanations. Introduction of bills. The Regulation of Mobile Devices in Schools Bill 2015 in the name of the Minister of Education.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 64-1B, I beg to move that the next stage of the bill be taken later in proceedings.
Honourable members, the question is that the next stage of the bill be taken later in the proceedings. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. The next stage of the bill will be taken later in the proceedings.
Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister. Public business, government business, motions.
The Honourable the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas Trinidad and Tobago as a small island developing state is vulnerable to adverse impacts of climate change. And whereas Trinidad and Tobago's intended nationally determined contribution, INDC, under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, includes a commitment to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 15% by 2030. And whereas Trinidad and Tobago intends to embark on the development of a new national climate change policy for the country in 2016, and whereas Trinidad and Tobago is the only Caribbean country to have made a commitment to present its INDC at the Conference of Parties to be held in Paris, December 2015. Be it resolved that this Youth Parliament agrees to the appointment of a bipartisan committee of youth parliamentarians to solicit the views of the youth in this country on climate change. And be it further resolved that this committee be mandated to submit its report with findings and recommendations to the National Youth Parliament within 6 months of its appointment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to present today. Trinidad and Tobago is one of the wealthiest nations in the region in terms of our GDP per capita, where we have benefited from decades of economic growth fueled primarily by its profitable energy sector. According to a document entitled Working for Sustainable Development in Trinidad and Tobago, which was published in 2012 by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, it stated that the government and the citizens were questioning the progress and success in making Trinidad and Tobago a low-carbon, resource-efficient, and socially inclusive nation. Trinidad and Tobago ranked 139th out of 146 countries that were studied in this Environmental Sustainability Index because of its ability to protect the environment over the next several decades. The same study went on to suggest that this is largely the result of poor petroleum production with cheap energy prices, which in turn leads to a large greenhouse gas production per capita. Mr. Speaker, in order for Trinidad and Tobago to have stability in the economic and environmental sectors, it is with great significance that we look at various conservative efforts. We must distinguish the importance of sustainable development as a key component in this country's development path, as we are a small island developing state, SIDS, with a fragile ecosystem, limited land space, and finite natural resources. Trinidad and Tobago is vulnerable to external environmental and economic shocks. Mr. Speaker, given our geographical location and geology, we are vulnerable to several natural hazards, including hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes. The country's past economic pathways have tended to emphasize economic and social stability, sometimes to the detriment of the environment. Gas reserves are not limitless, and the more conservative estimates based on the current and available gas reserves, excluding untapped and unexplored reserves, suggest a limited period of continued supply. As the member for Tobago West, I would like to briefly share some insights on the effects of Tobago based on the National Climate Change Policy in July 2011. They projected the climate change for the temperature increase and precipitation decrease for Tobago as it generally tend to be more extreme than those for Trinidad. The approach to climate change that we have taken, according to an excerpt from 2015's Global Change Legislation Study, shows that in 1992, Trinidad and Tobago signed the UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol as a non-Annex I county. In 1990, the Trinidad and Tobago government established the working group to determine the implications of global warming, climate change, and sea level rise. They consist of representatives from the relevant government ministries, NGOs, and private sectors, and is currently chaired by the Environmental Management Authority, EMA, which is a statutory board under the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources. Trinidad and Tobago does not have a law dedicated to carbon reductions. However, there is a recognition of the importance of climate change issues. and there are a number of measures in place to mitigate and adapt to climate change. One of them being the National Climate Change Policy, NCCP, where its objective is to oversee the climate policies and provide administrative and legislative framework for climate change mitigation, guidance and adoption for low-carbon development in the country as it was approved by Cabinet in 2011. Mr. Speaker, you may propose the question, why youth parliamentarians? Mr. Speaker, an article presented by The Guardian UK is entitled Young People Ask About Their Fears and Hopes on the Climate Change. It captured the views of youth around the world between the ages of 17 to 24, where they all hope that the relevant government and authorities make changes and set legislations in place to eliminate this threat to our ecosystem. Mr. Speaker, as a young person myself, I strongly recommend that this motion be taken up by the Youth Committee to do the necessary research to find improvements for our ecosystem, as there is a rise of problems that are occurring in our agriculture, human health, coastal zones, and marine life and water resources because of these avid climate changes. We are the voices for tomorrow, therefore this is our responsibility. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move.
Honourable members, I will now propose the question for debate. The question is, whereas Trinidad and Tobago, as a small island developing state, is vulnerable to adverse effects of climate change, and whereas Trinidad and Tobago's intended nationally determined contribution, the INDC, under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, includes a commitment to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 15% in 2030. And whereas Trinidad and Tobago intends to embark on the development of a new national climate change policy for the country in 2016. And whereas Trinidad and Tobago is the only Caribbean country to have made a commitment to present its INDC at the Conference of Parties to be held in Paris in December 2015. Be it resolved that this Youth Parliament agreed to the appointment of a bipartisan committee of youth parliamentarians to solicit the views of youth in this country on climate change. And be it further resolved that this committee be mandated to submit its report with findings and recommendations to the National Youth Parliament within 6 months of its appointment. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great joy that I can stand in this honourable House and speak about the opposition's great desire to agree and to move forward with this motion, with the creation of this bipartisan committee. Mr. Speaker, the reason being is because we have found ourselves now in the 21st century with a bit of a problem. That's a light way of putting it. Climate change is an issue not only for us in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's an issue for the entire human race. Mr. Speaker, specifically 3 things stood out to me when the Prime Minister made her contribution, and these 3 concerns are what my contribution will highlight today. Firstly, sustainability. A little history lesson about Trinidad and Tobago is that we began, in some ways, in terms of our modern economy, with a sugar-based economy. From there, we moved to cocoa and other crops, then to oil-based, and now we are a natural gas-based economy. Natural gas accounts for 40%, almost 40% of our GDP, and almost 80% of our exports. And we realize the great importance of the oil and gas industry in our economy. How can we then mitigate the need to roll back on the greenhouse emissions with our need to develop as a nation? This is one of my concerns going forward, and I will continue to pilot this, and my team as we go forward, speaking about the issue of our development in the face of climate change. There is a need, of course, to go green, but how can we go green and also develop our nation so heavily dependent on the oil and gas and natural gas-based products and manufacturing? Mr. Speaker, please help us in understanding this the importance of this is the graveness, the great, grave pressure upon us to develop new ways of dealing with climate change. The only greater form that can eclipse this is the great hope that we have for tomorrow. A tomorrow where we can see climate change as a thing of the past. It is a gift and a burden that we will pass on to the generations to come. My second point is that of continuity. In terms of giving this gift and this burden to the younger generation, the generations who are not here. The analogy I will use is that of a table filled with food, both sour and sweet. And we are all inhabitants, we are all partakers, but there's an empty seat. And that empty seat belongs to the generation that will come after us. We must ensure that that table is fitted with more sweet than sour. We must ensure, Mr. Speaker, that we put the things in place today and that we re-socialize the generations to come to understand the importance of not only the preservation of our country, but the preservation of our environment, of the world. Mr. Speaker, my third point centers around the assistance and the aid that the larger countries must give to the smaller countries such as ourselves. France, the European Union as a larger body, America, the UK. We must look to them to offer not only words and conferences, but also resources in our aid to move away from natural gas into greener forms of production, in terms of greener forms of manufacturing and development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is with great joy, as I said before, that we will work together with the government and that we will put forth what we need to put forth concerning these things, and we will put it forth in a manner that will bring together all the points, like the agricultural sector. Climate change will affect the cycles of crops. It will affect the health, of course, with heat wave stroke increasing over the time period. And of course, I think about Trinidad and Tobago, especially Port of Spain, with the reclaimed land that can be taken back by nature if we do not take care of her. Mr. Speaker, the old-time saying of God is a tree can no longer stand. We must take action. We must move now. We must do what we can as young people, as older people, as experienced people. We must move in concert, Mr. Speaker, to handle this issue before there is not an issue to handle, as we have lost our humanity and our environment. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to take this moment to say that I agree with the opposition leader and therefore we shall go on. I beg to move.
Honourable members, the question is that this youth parliament, be it resolved that this youth parliament agree to the appointment of a bipartisan committee of youth parliamentarians to solicit the views of the youth in this country on climate change. And be it further resolved that this committee be mandated to submit its report with findings and recommendations to the National Youth Parliament within 6 months of its appointment. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. The motion is approved. The Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Regulation of the Use of Mobile Devices in Schools and for Related Matters be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, I wish to congratulate you on your appointment to this esteemed position, and I would also like to extend congratulations to all the recently selected members of this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, today I have the honor of speaking to you as the representative for Digo-Martin Central and the Minister of Education on the Regulation of Mobile Devices in Schools Bill. The purpose of this bill is to effect regulations regarding the use of mobile devices in primary schools and secondary schools. This bill comes amidst growing concerns about the current school-age population and the educational development in this technologically advanced era. Mr. Speaker, owing to the rapid increase in technology and its prevalence in our society, has become more technologically dependent, and this has impacted the way we live, the way we think, and the way we learn. Mr. Speaker, as Trinidad and Tobago strives to stand as a first world nation amongst all other developed countries, we need to encourage our youth, particularly those in primary and secondary schools, as well as our educators, to embrace all new technologies. This, however, must be done in a manner that augments educational environment and is non-disruptive. In this context, it is appropriate that we regulate the use of technology in schools, and more specifically, mobile devices. Mr. Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago is not unique in seeking to regulate the use of mobile devices in schools. I'd like to say that the state of New Jersey in the United States in 2014 implemented regulations to these mobile devices in schools. And this was in a response to an over-observed 88% increase in the number of students with mobile devices, which contributed to an increase in the academic failure rate of students. As a consequence, Mr. Speaker, a policy was developed, implemented by the Harvard Board of Education, File Code 3515.1, which was used to eliminate the disruption within the school. Prohibition of the use of mobile devices during class time for students, outlining certain processes to be followed, and providing for teachers selective use of these mobile devices. The state of New Jersey found that this implementation of this policy resulted in a 65% increase in the success rate of students' academics. May I repeat, a 65, from a 55% decrease to a 65% increase. Mr. Speaker, I will now go through all the clauses of the bill. Clause 1 provides a short title for the bill, which is the Deregulation of the Mobile Devices in School Act 2015. Clause 2 defines the terms that provide for the interpretation of the bill. And Mr. Speaker, Clause 2, the definition of mobile devices as stated by the bill, means any mobile telephone or any other device which performs an interactive communication function by transmitting, receiving data, but does not include a personal laptop provided by the government. Mr. Speaker, these laptops are allowed because of the IC teams that the Ministry of Education have put in place to maintain and address the concerns of these students. There's also software installed to monitor the usage of these laptops. And since the Ministry of Education has a duty to protect our children from any explicit content and to ensure that the laptops provide for only educational use. Interactive communication function includes sending or receiving oral or written messages, for example, a voice note or a text message, sending or receiving facsimiles, and sending or receiving still or moving images, and providing internet access. These are what we consider as the offenses that will have consequential actions. Mr. Speaker, in order to be effective in promoting good education, we must ensure that these rules are put in place and are followed. And as I mentioned before, there are no exceptions to the rules. Prescribe refers to the regulations made under Clause 6, which I will go in depth later on. And principal includes the vice principal or any person acting at the time of incident. This person will be responsible for reporting incidents where students are found to be in breach of this act. Minister refers to myself as I am the Minister of Education with the responsibility for education. Clause 3 proposes the total prohibition of the use of mobile devices in primary schools. Mr. Speaker, while this may seem drastic, the Ministry of Education has set out the primary school curriculum and has provided the necessary textbooks to support all topics to be covered by the respective teachers in order to ensure fair and effective learning. In addition, in most primary schools, there are computer labs provided for those without. These resources may be requested by the Ministry of Education. Mr. Speaker, we understand that security is a great concern for parents and guardians. And the surety of their safety of their child or ward is the main objective for issuing these mobile devices. Parents want to stay in contact with their children in the event of an emergency, Mr. Speaker, but we are sure provisions have been made for such occurrences. In the event of an emergency at school or another matter, a child will be allowed to call his parent from the school's administrative office. Clause 4 provides for the limited usage of mobile devices in secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, in a representative survey done in 20 secondary schools completed by myself It was discovered that 9 in 10 students have mobile devices on their persons at all times. 6 in 10 students use their devices freely. But, Mr. Speaker, 4 in 5 teachers say that the devices hinder effective learning during classroom sessions. It is duly noted, however, that in secondary schools, mobile devices assist students with research and similar educational pursuits. Consequently, the use of mobile devices will be prohibited only when class is in session, meaning when a teacher is in front of a student or any educational purpose is going on. Where mobile devices have been allowed, we have provided provisions of cell towers to be provided, which students are to leave their device powered off upon entering the school compound. They are not allowed to take these devices unless they are leaving early in the leave of a parent or guardian, or permitted to do so by a teacher or higher authority. Clause 5, subsection 1, provides for the notification of parents upon breaches of clause 3 and 4 by the student by any investigation by the principal. So this ensures that the parent will be informed of the child's dismissed demeanor and refusal to comply with these rules and regulations. The principal will have discretion using the suspension of attendance from school to a maximum of 7 days, depending on the severity of the offense. It should be noted that suspension is not the only form of punishment. The principals can be guided by the National School Code of Conduct on the standard use of mobile handheld electronic devices in schools and technology and the internet. Mr. Speaker, the necessary amendments will be done to the National School Code of Conduct so that it does not contradict this bill. For example, in Section 2, we will include the use of cell towers, and in Section 4, subsection 2, the use of mobile devices provided by the government will be added. Principals will be required to use the recommended consequences for breaches by students. If it is determined that suspension is necessary due to the seriousness of offense, the principal must notify the supervisor of the school, who will notify myself as the Ministry of Education, who will refer any suspension for further determination by myself, and that will be deemed as final. Clause 6 provides for the minister to make necessary regulations to tag along with the bill and give effects for the provision of this act. Mr. Speaker, it is clear from the foregoing that this legislation seeks to provide for the embracing of new technologies in our primary and our secondary schools in a manner that allows for enhanced effective educational environment. Therefore, I beg to move.
Honorable members, I shall now propose the question for debate. The question is that a bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Regulation of the Use of Mobile Devices in Schools and for Related Matters be now read a second time. The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great honor that I stand here in my contribution of the Regulation of Mobile Devices in Schools Bill 2015. And it is also with great honor and privilege that on behalf of the opposition, we can say that we are willing to work with the government going forward to ensure that this bill can touch and better the society as a whole. Mr. Speaker, there are still some concerns, and my contribution will touch on these things. So please indulge me as I wax philosophical on 2 points. For I believe, Mr. Speaker, that this bill promises to give Trinidad and Tobago a great opportunity, not only in terms of its governance, but also in terms of how our society can be restructured. Firstly, we have to see how we can allow our students to be more disciplined. The watchwords of our country given by the late Dr. Eric Williams are discipline, tolerance, and production. But where is the discipline? Where is the tolerance? Where is the production, Mr. Speaker? If every time you are given a responsibility, there's someone behind your back looking to see what you will do, when you will do it, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps responsible adults do not just spring up from thin air, but perhaps they come from the primary school level, from the kindergarten level, as responsible students, as responsible young people. Mr. Speaker, we have here the opportunity to restructure and resocialize our country as we can put a new understanding of what technology means. What does the smartphone, what does the mobile device mean, Mr. Speaker? Is it an entertainment nexus, or is it an opportunity to enable learning, to prosper, innovation? Please, Mr. Speaker, allow me to help you all to see what lies in this bill. Second of all, it is great for us to come together, the opposition and the government, in unison, to show not only the citizens of this country, but of the entire world, that that's because we're on the other side does not mean we have to oppose one another. That we can pass the bills that are necessary for the betterment of our country and not for petty agendas, Mr. Speaker. That being said, we should not go into the knee-jerk reactions of prohibiting. Mr. Speaker, in America, an April 2010 study by the PEW Internet and American Life Project and the University of Michigan, they did a study on students from schools, some schools that allowed cell phones and mobile devices. They said that 71% took advantage of that, Mr. Speaker. In the schools where it was allowed, but not in classrooms, 65% took advantage of that. And in the schools where it was totally banned, a whopping 58%. Does that mean that we cannot totally remove cell phones and mobile devices from schools? And if that is the case, why not embrace the benefits, Mr. Speaker, of such technology? Mr. Speaker, in Singapore, there is a village in Yanchang where kindergarteners and primary schoolers are given mobile devices to augment their learning. They spend time taking videos of the teacher, texting one another about the school. Of course, there will be times where technology can be misused, but according to the Education Minister of Barbados, 250 miles northeast of Trinidad and Tobago, they are wishing to repeal the ban on mobile devices in school, because they realize that the same laptops that they are giving out, a mobile device has the same capacity, has the same apps. So what is the difference? Perhaps this will cut the cost. If everyone's given, for example, a government-issued smartphone, a smartphone, to make smart students, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, please indulge me as I speak about the cost efficiency. Less paper for books as books become digital.
Honourable Member, in accordance with Standing Order 45, your time limit has now expired. I'll give you approximately 10 seconds to wrap up.
Mr. Speaker, let us not say that we took the easy way out, but let it be recorded in Hansraj that we were mavericks, that we were pioneers, that we were visionaries. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would firstly like to acknowledge that the government did and still do understand the many opportunities and benefits that these mobile devices present for our nation's students in schools. However, the Ministry of Education had no doubt that such use of devices by school-age students needed to be regulated to ensure inoffensive and responsible use. After many reported matters pertaining towards the misuse of these devices were made throughout the 7 educational districts in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, in January of 2007, the Ministry of Education published Handbook 8, also known as the Guidelines for Mobile Handheld Electronic Communication Devices, with the intent of the Ministry to regulate, not ban, these devices from schools or school-related activities. So you can see, Mr. Speaker, the government did take steps towards taking alternative methods instead of permanently banning these devices, which has obviously been proven to be useless. The students will obviously find ways and means to get the devices on person in schools, even though they have to pass through security checks, searches, or however you would like to put it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as 5.2 of the handbook clearly states that all MHACDs be powered off while entering a school compound has proven to be ineffective, such as students found that they can easily elude detection by teachers or staff at the school by using small, easy-to-hide, compact devices. Mr. Speaker, while the teacher is teaching on the board, I am posting up #board. Yes, or I'm taking out, when Miss is facing the blackboard, I'm taking out a selfie, me in class, me and my friends. This is the new modern classroom that teachers are facing these days. I would also like to point out that these devices aid not only as educational tools. If there is to be conflict amongst the students in school, these devices aid as a form of communication to call for reinforcements. Recently, there were people found scaling the school fences to ambush students because of an altercation during recess. These are the same devices that we are calling for them to use in emergencies, yet they're using them as a tool of war. Mr. Speaker, this is not what we want for our nation's students. School is a place for education, the happiest days of your life. Create moments to remember forever. Take it to carry you forward, not to be put at a position to make conscious decisions whether you should put on this today or you should go with this tomorrow or my phone in charge, I charge it. No. Your books in your bag, your lunch in your lunch kit, and you're going. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, my esteemed colleagues will further elaborate on the misconduct of these students with these devices at class and at school. I will, however, like to advocate on clause 3 of the bill, where it is proposed to prohibit the use of mobile devices by students attending primary schools while at school. Mr. Speaker, I would like to advocate on this clause of the bill because these devices tend to have a greater impact on these young minds. Yet, as you can see, these young minds lack the knowledge to fully comprehend right from wrong. But they lack to fully comprehend right from wrong with reference to explicit and violent videos, games, TV shows that will be downloaded onto these devices, and whether they are viewing these acts on a personal device, a device of a peer, or irresponsible adult while at school, they will obviously be curious to attempt some of these acts, and school is not a place for this. I'm sure everyone can agree with me. Maths class turning into WWE SmackDown? No. And then as the Minister of Education clearly stated, everyone will rush to call for ambulance. If one person has called for immediate emergency response, another person calls after, there will be a conjunction in the response of the emergency unit. Not so. That is why these things are to be left to the relevant authorities, the authorities of the school, the staff, the teachers, the principal, mainly the principal. I believe, Mr. Speaker, by passing this bill, we are not putting our students at a disadvantage, nor are we sending them back to the Stone Age. We are teaching them that there's a time and a place for everything. At school, Mr. Speaker, these devices have proven to be far too much a distraction, as most of these devices serve a multi-purpose purpose. Am I not right? They are educational tools, but they have to also consider that they can search the internet, social media, and these things tend to draw their attention far away from education with these students. It has happened. Many reports have been made by teachers. They have complained about right through the texting, or right anybody they want to take on. Children are becoming less recreational. They prefer not to interact in physical activities.
Honorable Member, your time has expired. I will give you 10 seconds to wrap up.
I would just like to say, Mr. Speaker, it's been an honor speaking this morning, and I thank you.
The Honorable Member for Siparia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good day to you all. Now, to begin my contribution, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate the government for being selected and for their strenuous work and effort put into the construction of this bill. Now, to jump right into the situation, Mr. Speaker, Clause 3 states, and I quote, "No student attending a primary school shall use a mobile device while he is at school." Now, Mr. Speaker, at a glance, the phrase "while he is at school" is quite confusing. It's still from the rest. I'm simply trying to understand what the government's intention was. Now, is being at school on the school compound, during the school hours of the day, or anything of that manner? I am confused first and foremost, Mr. Speaker, on the realization that that side is leaving no room for emergency, no room for flexibility, No room for, to put into better words, unforeseen circumstances that may arise during the course of the day, Mr. Speaker. I don't mean to come across aggressive, but I'm simply confused. The Ministry of Education and the Minister of Education, I'm sure they recognize that the world is moving steadily towards a combination of mobile computing and technology and electronic technology. From an educational perspective, Mr. Speaker, the question that begs is how are these mobile devices and technologies going to affect the learning environment, the school environment, school life, and pedagogy? Now, according to the Journal on EdTech Research News written by David Nagel, 1/3 of United States students use mobile devices within their classrooms. Mr. Speaker, if we want to be more specific, it was found that half the number of students between the grades of 3 and 5 utilize smartphones. 62% utilize laptops within the class, and 58% possess tablets. Among all elementary students in the United States, Mr. Speaker, 33% are permitted and are using these mobile devices within the classroom. Why does the government insist on depriving our future leaders of our country of a higher level learning experience? That is my question to you, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking solely on the basis of moving from a developing country, as the Prime Minister quoted, to a developed country like the United States. Now, there can be little doubt that the use of such devices must be regulated, and I repeat, Mr. Speaker, regulated, in order to ensure responsible and inoffensive use. I am not saying that that side's intentions were vacuous, that they had no basis, that they had no purpose. All I'm trying to say is that this side, the opposition, is willing to assist them in the places where they may have slipped up. Because we are, for one, moving towards a better nation together. Mr. Speaker, the other side believes that omitting these devices in our schools will be an easy task, that they will be beneficial. Now, I am confused. How could we guarantee the omission of these devices in our schools if we cannot guarantee its omission in our prisons, Mr. Speaker? With retrospect to a matter concerning national security, I remember the Seoul incident where I was a victim. Mr. Speaker, as a child attending Rougier Boys Archie School in Park Street, Port of Spain, there was one day where I really feared for my life. A miscommunication between my parents and myself resulted in them believing I was traveling home and I believing I was being picked up. With the era of lacking technology, obviously I did not have a mobile device. Mr. Speaker, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I stayed in my school compound, unable to contact my parents. Now, I am certain this problem could have been avoided if, one, mobile devices were implemented and developed throughout our country and our schools, and two, if the school had proper measures put in place for such an incident. Now, I can assure the member from Fort Diego Martin Central that the administrative office was closed at that time. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to quote an article written by Michel Marquez from the New York Amsterdam News, dated July 21st, 2011. An 8-year-old boy by the name of Levi Klitzel was abducted by a stranger in his neighborhood of the school in Brooklyn and was then sadly murdered a week later. Mr. Speaker, the parents of the community blamed the New York City schools' ban on cell phones and mobile devices as its main cause for such an incident. Mr. Speaker, let's not wait and pay the price for such a tragedy. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Chaguanas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in recent years, the education sector has indisputably received the largest or one of the largest budget allocations. But is the government, and by extension the nation, getting value for money? Mr. Speaker, The budget allocations for the education sector over the past 4 years are as follows. In the fiscal year 2012-2013, the education sector was allocated $9.1 billion. In the year 2013-2014, the allocation increased to $9.8 billion. Mr. Speaker, the education sector was allocated a whopping $10.1 billion in the year 2014-2015. Mr. Speaker, this means in just 4 years, the government would have spent over $38 billion on the education sector. Can we see where mobile devices in schools have been even remotely considered or regulated in these budgets? Mr. Speaker, according to a local newspaper, The Newsday, printed on August 9, 2015, note the present date, as I quote, educational consultant Dr. Lennox Bernard says the people of Trinidad and Tobago are not getting the value for the hefty allocations that have been pumped into the education sector over the years. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, young people can easily become distracted with their studies, and because they may have a mobile device, makes it easier for them to lose focus. If they become bored with the class material being provided, it is easy for them to take their cell phones to play games or go on social media. How can you expect a child or a teen to absorb the knowledge they need if they are not even paying attention in class, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, if mobile devices are allowed in classroom, the use of Wi-Fi would be mandatory for effective learning. Wi-Fi would then have to be provided for each and every school in Trinidad and Tobago. But at what cost to our taxpayers? Is this cost worth it? I think not. As a result of this, it can be more challenging for an IT department to manage the bandwidth required to ensure everyone is connected and all running smoothly. New hardware and software would have to be implemented. Their integration into the education settings requires significant planning and preparation. Mr. Speaker, having done my exhaustive research, I now have the breakdown of costs after consultations with IT technicians and other IT specialists as follows. The provision of new hardware and software for the implementation of Wi-Fi for one school is equal to $100,000. The total cost for over 450 schools will equal to $55 million, Mr. Speaker. The cost of training teachers and technicians amounts to over $50,000. The maintenance for the software and hardware per annum for one school will equal to $25,000. That amounts to a total of approximately $12,500,000, Mr. Speaker. The cost of Wi-Fi would be $4,800,000. Security features, $1,500,000. This amounts to a total of $72,050,000 per year, Mr. Speaker. How unrealistic can this be considering our budget allocation? Mr. Speaker, some may say that the implementation of mobile devices will cost the government more than the textbook rental program. But I'm here to say this is not true. Mr. Peter Cohen, the Chief Executive Officer of the U.S. Co-Curriculum for Pearson, said, and I quote, when you add up the cost of your mobile device, the cost of your bandwidth, the cost of your professional development, etc., you are going to spend more money on an annual basis than we spend for paper. Mr. Speaker, the selection and deployment of technology on its own will not automatically result in learning gains for students. Mr. Speaker, if the implementation of mobile devices in schools is so costly, how much more so will the regulation of such devices be? Be advised, my esteemed colleagues, we are not advocating for a total ban of mobile devices and technology. In fact, every school has been allocated IT labs, AV rooms, technicians to regulate such use. However, budgetary allocations, in my humble opinion, are unrealistic in terms of regulating the use of mobile devices. Mr. Speaker, I'm bringing it up to date. This morning in the news, Mr. Speaker, up to this very morning, CNN reported a sexting scandal in a school in Idaho where students would have been caught exchanging hundreds of photos with themselves during class time. Mr. Speaker, as I wrap up this presentation, I wish to take the opportunity to thank you for your undivided attention. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Fortin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Pointe-a-Pierre, sorry. Pointe-a-Pierre.
Now I'm going to cut right to the chase. I am sure that everyone present in this chamber can agree that technology has become an integral part of our everyday lives, and this includes mobile devices. Now this bill, I understand, seeks to eliminate some of the negative aspects of these mobile devices. However, Mr. Speaker, I want us to note that developed countries such as the United States of America and Europe have found ways to integrate these devices in their classrooms despite the negative aspects. Firstly, I want to start off by a quote from the CEO of Interpublic's Advanced Marketing Services, Larry Weber, who has said, "Today's youth market is focused mainly on their mobile devices. Therefore, getting to them on the way they like to view information is the right way to do it." A clear example is that the Caribbean Examination Council has now made available electronic copies of CAPE and CXC past papers and other resource materials. Now, regarding Clause 3, I'm going to assume the government believes that IT labs provide enough interaction with technology the students need. However, my question is this: why must we restrict the learning to a subject called IT? Why is it that teachers cannot call on students to use their mobile devices to make any subject, for that matter, more intriguing? A study done by Grunwald Associates found that students in schools where mobile or portable devices are required as part of the curriculum are even more positive about the learning and educational potential than children whose school bans such devices. A study done by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt in California showed that students using iPads their math scores increased 20% in 1 year than students who use traditional textbooks. All I am asking, Mr. Speaker, is that we harness the power of these devices for every aspect of our nation's school curriculum. Secondly, I want you to ask yourself, who are we really blaming for the poor usage of these devices? Are we blaming the inanimate objects themselves? Are we blaming the children? Or are we blaming the adults who have not taught the children how to use these devices in a productive manner? Rather than try to control them, why not try to teach them the productive and positive aspects of these devices? We are all aware that there have been an increasing number of inappropriate videos coming from secondary schools in our nation. Now, Clause 4, if I think about it abstractly, tries to address the situation. However, I'm not sure the government is aware that when classes are not in session and students can use their phone, inappropriate video taking can still occur. Mr. Speaker, we can just tackle the problem head-on by teaching students to address the source of the inappropriate behavior and to view the mobile devices as an educational, productive tool rather than a recreational item. Now, I want everyone to finally take a step back with me from just the educational aspects of these devices. Integrating ICTs and mobile devices in schools can be one step towards further development of Trinidad and Tobago information technology sector. As of today, ICT companies only contribute to an estimated 3.5% of Trinidad and Tobago's economy in the areas of telecommunication and professional and technical services. Mr. Speaker, I want to see this number grow. Mrs. Vashti Miraj, Head Legal Services at the Ministry of Science and Technology, said, if properly harnessed, ICT has the potential to develop sustainable growth and development. Mr. Speaker, if the schools can properly harness the power of mobile devices, we can see a significant growth in the education and productivity levels of not only our classroom, but of our nation as a whole. In closing, I want to make sure the government does not misunderstand us by thinking we want free use of these devices, because that is not the case. We agree that there should be certain consequences when these devices are used in a negative manner, which is what I can see the government tried to do. However, rather than labeling these devices in a negative manner as a harmful and a distraction, let us, both the opposition and the government, work together to see how can we use these devices positively for the betterment of our nation, to our nation's advantage. I do believe that the bill should be reshaped with a clear vision in mind, a vision that will take our country further. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for St. Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We agree that mobile devices are beneficial, but regulation is needed in schools. The health of our students is just as important as the need to educate our students. This bill seeks to protect the youth, and as the Minister of Health, I fully support this bill. It is common knowledge that mobile devices emit radiation. However, what is not common knowledge is this radiation there's a proven link between the radiation and male infertility, according to mayoclinic.org. The radiation affects sperm count, sperm motility, and sperm function, which after it takes several years to correct itself. High doses of this radiation can severely affect production permanently. In Trinidad and Tobago, we are currently dealing with an aging population. Do we want to aggravate the problem we are already dealing with? Children are more vulnerable to the effects of this radiation as they are mentally and physically still developing. If we allow these mobile devices into the schools, the results will be different, as they would have longer exposure to the radiation their whole lives. Do you want us to be one of the last generations to pass through this parliament? Be mindful that there is no evidence of what will occur if a human being is exposed to this radiation from a tender age to death. Mr. Speaker, I do not believe we should make our students guinea pigs. We should not experiment with our future. Dr. Joan Portello for Time magazine speaks about how the distance of these devices are held to the face and how it results in short-sightedness. The mobile devices are held about no more than 9 inches from the face, so it is evident that short-sightedness will occur. This would mean higher budget allocations to health in order to provide glasses for these students. Mr. Speaker, we know the position one adopts when on these mobile devices. The head is tilted and pressure is increased on the spine. It has become so popular that scientists have coined a term for this: text neck. Every inch the head is carried forward, the pressure on the neck doubles. If we allow these mobile devices in schools, the children will need spinal care earlier in life, which again spells higher budget allocations to health. The text neck effect is comparable to bending a finger all the way back and holding it there for an hour, according to the American Physical Therapy Association Private Practice Section ex-president Tom DeAngelis. The high frequency of this mobile device use has negative effects on the stress levels. The constant ringing, vibrating alerts, and reminders can put the users of the mobile devices on edge. Research at the University of Gothenburg, Sweden, found overuse of mobile devices are associated with stress, sleep disturbances, and depression in both men and women. Overall, excessive cell phone use can be a risk factor for mental health issues of our students. Because of this, researchers suggest that we should limit the interaction with these mobile devices. Who are we to disregard the advice of qualified professionals? Education is important, but in the process, we must ensure that health is not neglected or compromised. Precautions must be taken to ensure both educational and health needs are met. This is what this bill seeks to do. If that means not allowing mobile devices in primary schools and only allowing secondary school students to use these mobile devices outside of school, that is what this government is willing to do to protect our most cherished resource, the youth. The onus is upon us to keep the youth healthy, as they are the ones that will be keeping this nation moving in an upward trajectory towards development. Thank you, Mr.
Speaker. Honourable Member for Fyzabad.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, I would just like to address some of the things that the ministers have said. So, for the member of Chaguanas East, laptops were provided by the government. Now, if we want the implementation of these laptops and we want them to be used in the curriculum, not so, wouldn't you have to still implement all these regulations and Wi-Fi when they come to the same cost? Just because mobile devices will be an addition doesn't mean that Wi-Fi should not be provided to the students. And also, you asked the question, are we getting the value for our money in the education system? And I believe we are not without the implementation of these mobile devices. Also, to the member for St. Augustine, can't they not get these neck issues from their own laptops as well? They can't? Are you sure? Now, I would just like to add to what my fellow colleagues have said. A lot of studies have been done to prove that mobile devices are an addition to the educational system and can improve academic performance of students. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering if it can be done over there, why can't it be done over here? Because students may take the initiative for themselves to find ways to use these mobile devices to their advantage and come back to school and teach their fellow students. And with the guidance of their teachers, I believe that they should have the ability and opportunity to share this benefit that they have found and discovered with their fellow classmates. And also, mobile devices can cause the classroom to have a more intimate feel and increase the level of interaction among student to student and student to teacher. And also it can develop their minds as they begin to develop skills such as multitasking and in the fields of technology as well as multiple intelligences. Now I'm representing Fyzabad, that is my constituency. And in Fyzabad Secondary School, there is an IT lab. However, this IT lab cannot be accessed during class time. And also it can be accessed during lunchtime, however, only for a maximum of 15 minutes per student. And they have a library, yes, that has computers. However, there are only 6 computers, and each of these computers work very slow and are very inefficient. So for the students that do not have the benefit of these laptops, either they do not work, they are inefficient, or they are the current Form 1s and the current Upper 6s, should we just disregard them from this entire thing? Because if this bill is passed, it will affect them as well. So I believe that I am speaking on behalf of each opposition member when I say that we should find a way to regulate these mobile devices and use them to the advantage and the benefit of our students and the teachers as well. Because regardless of what you think, believe, say or do, the advancement of technology is inevitable. So why should we not use these devices to our advantage? And why should we not let the teachers have the responsibility, as well as the students helping them, to find ways for these mobile devices to benefit them in that specific subject area and not just IT? Now, I would just like to give this analogy. Mobile devices are like the seasoning to food. Hear me out? They add to the flavor of the dish. And in this case, mobile devices will add alongside textbooks and notebooks to the curriculum, and the students will be able to learn how to balance the two and find the benefits of each to them. And I would like to just close with this. Remember, the education is the food. The salt, I believe, would be the teachers, the textbooks, and the notebooks that they have received. But the seasoning is the addition and the thing that gives it that little extra oomph that makes the meal worthwhile and enjoyable. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Fortin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let it be known that this government is indeed aware of the beneficial factors that mobile devices have. But we believe the full-time usage of these mobile devices in the classroom are non-essential. The other side makes it seem as if mobile devices are the silver bullet to education, Mr. Speaker. However, I like to believe that they are the contributors to the problems that are happening in schools today. And Mr. Speaker, these problems are starting from as early as in primary schools, where we place devices into the hands of underdeveloped minds so that we can facilitate multiple intelligences Mr. Speaker, as that may seem as a good thing, too much of a good thing can amount to a bad thing. And I will elaborate on this by quoting a study that was done in the Huffington Post by Dr. Chris Rowan, a pediatric occupational therapist. Her work expounded on the effects of handheld devices on children under the age of 12, and I quote, "Stimulation to the developing brain caused by overexposure to technology has been shown to be associated with executive functioning, attention deficit, cognitive delays, impaired learning, increased impulsivity, and decreased ability to self-regulate," unquote. Mr. Speaker, is this what we want to lead to? I agree. Development is a key, and we want to move from a developing to a developed nation. However, are we willing to put our future generation at risk of these mobile devices in the classroom, and in turn hamper our development level? Mr. Speaker, as the saying goes, what we plan now, we will harvest in the future. In my last point, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to add that students are not the only ones affected by these mobile devices. What about the teachers? How can they compete with such advanced technology in the classroom? Mr. Speaker, we are in an era where there's a one-way lecture. From a teacher who is considered sage of the stage is now fading. Are we now letting these mobile devices take over our teachers' jobs? What will happen to our teachers, Mr. Speaker? As Steve Jobs famously said, and I quote, "The problems facing education needs more than technology to be fixed. Competent, engaged teachers are more necessary than ever in the information age," unquote, Mr. Speaker. In conclusion, it appears to me that we need more stringent methods to be put in place in order to control these mobile devices in schools and in the classroom, as it can hamper the learning environment for the student as well as the teacher, as it contributes to the misusage of the device and as it being a disruptive force to the classroom. Mr. Speaker, this bill must be initiated because I believe if there weren't any problems presented by this bill would not have been brought forward today in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Diego Martin West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I could not have said it more eloquently than my colleagues on this side, who saw the value and the benefits of technology, and who saw that to withhold the use of mobile devices in schools would be to deny the child the opportunity to have immediate access, 24/7 immediate access to educational resources in a 21st century learning environment. As my colleague for St. Joseph, the Honourable Member for St. Joseph said, there is a time and place for everything. Why can't that time and place be in the classroom? Firstly, Mr. Speaker, I would like to concur with the government by saying that yes, we understand mobile devices can be a distraction in schools, but distraction is not limited to mobile devices. Students can find distraction in textbooks, in doodling, in daydreaming. You don't need a mobile device to play tic-tac-toe. So why have we not yet banned pen and paper? We have not yet banned pen and paper, so why restrict the use of mobile devices to a certain time and a certain place? Moreover, Mr. Speaker, if we only focus on the negative aspects of these mobile devices, we will never be able to overcome the obstacles and the challenges that it proposes, and we will leave the students of this nation unequipped with the knowledge on how to properly manage and balance the use of these mobile devices in conjunction with what the government, the learning avenues that the government has provided, being the textbooks and the laptops. And if the school is supposed to be a microcosm of society, why are we not integrating the use of mobile devices, which the students will then need to use in society, in the wider society, when they grow up? This is why we as the opposition intend to propose amendments to clause 3 and 4 in order to regulate, not prohibit, but regulate the use of these mobile devices by referring to the National School Code of Conduct on how as a guide to show how students should use these mobile devices positively. And if we remove the negative stigma attached to these mobile devices, students will not use them as an act of rebellion or as an act of negative recreation, but they will use them in a positive manner to foster education and innovation. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to point out that mobile devices are a great avenue for personalized learning. It has been proven that students learn differently. Students can learn visually, orally, through reading and writing, body kinesthetically, and mobile devices facilitate these different learning styles. The traditional way of education, whereby teachers spoon-feed students notes and expect them to regurgitate them verbatim in order to pass an exam, has not worked for every student and will not work for every student. Therefore, mobile devices can facilitate these different learning styles where the traditional form of education may lack to do so. Also, assistive devices, Mr. Speaker, can help those who have a hearing or a speech or a voice or a language disorder or different ability. I don't believe that Trinidad has reached the stage where every school, both primary and secondary, have the capability to facilitate students who may be differently abled or who may be differently able or who may be incapable of certain senses such as hearing or sight. I don't believe that there are textbooks in Braille available in every primary or secondary school. And mobile devices can counteract these, mobile devices can make up for these where the traditional forms of education lack. In terms of health, Mr. Speaker, cell phones emit radio frequency energy and radio waves, yes. But it is a non-ionizing form of radiation, which does not have a detrimental impact to a person's health. Ionizing radiation, yes, has a detrimental impact, but non-ionizing radiation, the only biological effect of non-ionizing radiation is heating. However, not so significant that it raises the temperature of the human body. Therefore, mobile devices have virtually no impact on a person's health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for San Fernando East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am honored to be in this House today, called upon to contribute to this bill. First, let me start by saying that there is now a huge pressure to have the latest mobile device with the latest technology and design in this 21st century, Mr. Speaker, with young people getting hung up on the extremes of continuous contact. Social development is then affected as persons tend to ignore those around them once a mobile device is placed in their hands. They become emotionally attached to these phones to the point that if they were to be allowed to have them allowed in classes, their device would always want their device to be within hearing range should they receive an alert and constantly using it to just say as an excuse to check the time, even though there may be watches or clocks available. Mr. Speaker, when a person who owns a phone or a mobile device, as we are calling it in this bill, loses it, it is as if a baby has been lost. Excuse me, sorry. They are, for lack of a better word, they are panicked, they are frightened at the fact that they are lost, that they are not seeing it within their eyesight, Mr. Speaker. Cell style is our life, and for some it would be embedded bionically if it was safe. Young adults need to find their way through these feelings because of who they are and not what they have. Remember, as a student, mobile device is necessary only outside the classroom. It will be disgraceful if your teacher caught you fidgeting with your phone in class, since it is not accepted, as we have it in this bill here, to be inside the classroom. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I present an argument that there should be a good balance between regular life and the digital world. I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Rima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, before I start my contribution, I would simply like to state that though I may be a member of the opposition, it is not my goal today to attack or be against the government. I am simply hoping that by giving my contribution, I may be able to assist the government in molding this bill to perfection so that can fully benefit our nation's youth. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start with a quote by Mr. Bill Gates, and I quote, "Technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is most important." My first point, Mr. Speaker, allowing students to use mobile devices in specific classes while being supervised can help them to develop a sense of responsibility, and by being slowly weaned to use mobile devices in a positive way, not only will they benefit positively, but their digital literacy will also be increased. Now, this term, Mr. Speaker, digital literacy, according to the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign Research Library, this is the ability to use digital technology, communication tools, or networks to locate, evaluate, use, and create information. Now, as I go to my first source, Mr. Speaker, I like to state that I am not by any means comparing our beloved Twin Island state to any country or other nation. I am simply looking at what has worked and what is working for countries who have gone before us in development, as we are a developing country, and extracting from this certain aspects that can be used to gauge the best path to carry our nation forward. I go to my source. A Future Lab handbook published by the National Foundation for Educational Research in the United Kingdom entitled Digital Literacy Across the Curriculum. This handbook is aimed at educational practitioners and school leaders in both primary and secondary schools who are interested in creative and critical uses of technology in classrooms. According to this handbook, Mr. Speaker, the skills, knowledge, and understanding of digital literacy are becoming indispensable as young people grow up in a society in which digital technology and media play an ever more important role. Rather than preventing our young people from engaging creatively with technology, a focus on digital literacy in the classroom can help them to expand and extend their use of technology for creativity and self-expression, and to develop a greater understanding of the complexities of what they are doing. Now, self-expression, Mr. Speaker. Self-expression has a good side and a bad side. Good side would be poetry, drama, literature, debate, Mr. Speaker. A bad side would be, especially with technology, cyberbullying. However, Mr. Speaker, it is my belief that in an environment as controlled as a classroom, with someone like a teacher there who is trained by the ministry, the teacher should be able to guide the students away from cyberbullying and teach them how to deal with a cyberbully if they ever encounter one. Mr. Speaker, this will be an example of the teacher working to assist the students to use mobile devices, which will in turn assist the teacher in teaching these very students. Also, Mr. Speaker, education systems need to help young people to understand and benefit from their engagement with digital technology and digital cultures. Fostering digital literacy in the classroom provides one way in which to make many subject learning relevant to a society in which growing technology use is changing the way that both adults and children represent and communicate information and meaning and participate in cultural life. This basically says, Mr. Speaker, that it is our duty as the leaders of our country to ensure that our children are allowed to benefit positively from these mobile devices, from technology, as the culture of the world is becoming technological. And as a country attempting to develop in this world, we have to adjust and adapt. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to end with one point. As much as we may not want to allow our children to use these mobile devices because of risk, we must continue to look at the positives whilst we keep our eye on the negative. Mr. Speaker, do we advise a person against taking life-saving radiation therapy because there's a chance of side effects? So, Mr. Speaker, do we prevent our children from positively benefiting from advancements in technology because there are some negative side effects? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs, I saw it incumbent to really look at how effective the regulation of mobile devices in schools be for future leaders. With major technological advancements and the world becoming a global village, things that were not as easily and quickly accessible are so now. This is the age of technology, and it would be hypocritical, if you will, of us to deprive our youngsters of being a part of this advancement. However, this bill makes provisions for these advancements whilst accommodating it under certain regulations, which I believe is a fair give and take. The Honourable Member for Martin West mentioned balance. This is balance. The use of mobile devices is common in all institutions. And I think it's safe to say that it sort of snuck up on us in terms of time not permitting the pleasure of being proactive, in terms of educating persons on how to really handle these devices. And prior instances, and even presently, show how persons misuse these devices, how they manage their time on it, how they use it for all forms of individualistic satisfaction, all because there's not an appreciation for its primary purpose. Yet, we as a society are embracing technology without understanding or considering the long-term ramifications of this decision. We are constantly seeking out short-term gains and improvements without having critical thought on how would this affect our future generation. Now, on the matter of youth development, I would like to articulate that technology doesn't allow a person to learn faster. It just provides different methods of teaching, and it allows convenience and comfort in the classroom and students' learning process. Technology is more convenient in the classroom than it is required. So, are we then creating a young population that wants everything easy and at their fingertips? There is a widespread belief among teachers that students' constant use in technology is hampering their attention spans and ability to persevere in the face of challenging tasks. According to a survey that was done among teachers in the USA, Hope Melinda Porter, an English teacher at the Troy High School in Fulton, California, noted a marked decline in the depth and analysis of students' written work. She also wondered if teachers were adding to the problem by adjusting their lessons to accommodate shorter attention spans. From this school of thought, one can deduce that this is in no way helping out our future leaders. If teachers have to move from what is applicable to the constant use of technology just to accommodate students, then we are developing a generation that only acts upon convenience. With the high dependence on technology, we as a society are putting all of our eggs into one basket, and we're not considering what will happen 10 to 20 years from now. And finally, it should be any nation's priority to develop a reliable, productive, and well-developed workforce that will make a sustainable contribution to our country's economy. With constant engagement in technology, it is possible that one's individual growth and creativity can be hampered. We are looking at utilizing a tool that was created by an innovative person and at the same time hampers innovation amongst our youths. Countless hours being spent on these devices can take away from productivity, creativity, and innovation. And I am of the firm view, Mr. Speaker, that innovation is key for sustainable development. Therefore, it is our duty as a society to encourage innovation amongst our youths, for them to keep coming up with new implementations and thinking of how to improve systems. If we don't do this, Mr. Speaker, our future will be in jeopardy. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for San Fernando West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I begin, Mr. Speaker, I wish to join with my colleagues in dispelling the perception that the main objective of the opposition is simply to oppose the ideas put forward by the government. We instead aim to identify and rectify the shortcomings of the government and work together with them to make this beloved country of Trinidad and Tobago the kind of place we want it to be. In Trinidad and Tobago, I understand the need for legislature to be put in place to regulate the use of mobile devices in schools. But, Mr. Speaker, I must admit that the bill put forward by the government is fundamentally flawed. Is this the framework that will take us into the future? Is this the framework that will take the children of today and mold them into the leaders of tomorrow in such a technological era? As of late, it is no secret, and the opposition does not deny the fact, that mobile devices, coupled with the improper use of social media, poses a threat and is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. But, Mr. Speaker, is this bill not a temporary solution for a permanent problem? Isn't it our duty to teach our kids the responsible ways to use their technology? Keeping them safe by refusing to expose them to the technology that is available is very irresponsible of us. And when I say expose them, I mean expose them in the setting of the classroom, not to be confused. I now draw your attention, or take you back to the contribution made by the Honorable MP for Chaguanas East, where he baffled us with some huge numbers. He said, and I quote, correct me if I am wrong, the cost to put infrastructure in place would be 55 million. Is that not right? But when infrastructure is put in place, this is not an annual fee. When you build a building, you don't need to build the building every year. The building is already there. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the cost per annum would amount to less than 20 million, according to his statistics. Do you have any idea how much money we spent on textbooks over the last 4 years? $249 million, Mr. Speaker. When we compare this to less than 150 million, if we go according to the statistics provided by our Minister of Finance, we see such a huge difference. And then they say textbooks is financially sustainable or will sustain our economy. Would it really? My second point, I will also like to draw reference to some points made by the Minister of Health, the MP for St. Augustine, and I couldn't agree more. These devices, and you list several illnesses, short-sightedness, text neck, mental health. But, Mr. Speaker, are we solving this problem? Are we stopping these health problems by saying we are banning or we are prohibiting the use in our schools? Are we? So when the student goes home from, let's say, around 4 till whatever time they go to sleep, they use their phone, wouldn't they suffer the same consequences? I believe, Mr. Speaker, that it is our responsibility to teach them. The Minister of Health knows all these illnesses, but these children, they do not know. And as such, it is our responsibility to teach them, to show them how to properly use this device, to take care of their health. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I would like to reiterate that we are in a technological era. And as such, we need to implement 21st century thinking as we construct our legislature that will govern our country properly. The dangers and pitfalls of mobile devices and this technology, they are never going to go away. But it is our responsibility as the leaders of our country, as the people our youth look up to, it is our responsibility to guide the leaders of tomorrow along the path which will not only benefit them, but again, make our beloved country of Trinidad and Tobago the kind of place we want it to be. I thank you.
Honorable Member for Tabakit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sensing a lot of apparent tension, so I must say that everybody looks very dashing in their suits. Mr. Speaker, I realize that the opposition, while they're making very important contributions, they are not actually looking at what the clauses list out. I would like to refer us to both Clause 3 and Clause 4. Clause 3 would prohibit the use of mobile devices by students attending primary schools while at school. Now, you all must understand that we are not endorsing the concept that mobile devices should be fully prohibited nationwide. In primary schools, for example, at the tender age of, say, 7 or 6, we must ask ourselves, do we really think that these primary school students are going to take the initiative and decide to further their educational purposes, or instead opt to play games, socialize with their friends, entertain themselves? That is the question we must ask ourselves. And that is why we have the stance.
Will the Honourable Minister give way?
Sure.
Are there not games that they can play that would help them education-wise?
That is a very good question, and yes, there are games, but I would presume that they should utilize these games when they are home instead of at school, because they have not come to school to play games. They came to school to learn. And that is why we have the stance that they should prohibit the use while at school. Clause 4 states, it would prohibit the use of mobile devices by students attending secondary schools during class time. Now, we are all privy to the explicit content, the inappropriate videos and such that make the headlines as suggested by the member for, he's acting, but the member for San Fernando West. Now, we are not saying that they cannot use their mobile devices when they're at school. Surely they can use it. I myself, I use my mobile device when I'm in the library. When I have free periods, I use it for information to work on my assignments. But during class time, the interpersonal relations between teacher and student must be had. And this is only possible through the face-to-face communications of teacher and student. Now, my final contribution will take more of a holistic and a holistic or philosophical approach. Albert Einstein once said, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots." Now, this is a very controversial statement, has a very negative connotation. But we must ask ourselves, have we reached this state? Have we truly reached this state where teenagers and kids alike come together to hang out but are fully engulfed in their mobile devices such as their phones? Mr. Speaker, unfortunately and with grave despair, I think we have. And this poses one serious question to myself. Would we want to implement this technology in our classrooms, the one place where human interaction must flourish? Will we let it stagnate our own nation's human interaction in the classroom? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Hoqueta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, although I agree that there has been an increase in negative use of mobile devices, but my question is to you, where in this world or which country do you know of that this problem does not exist? And for you that's forbidding it and sweeping it under the rug, will this problem be solved? No, I don't think this problem will be solved. I think forbidding the students from using these mobile devices will in fact increase their curiosity. Now, before there was a student companion. Now I think we need a student companion of a 2.0. Now I would like to appeal to the Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, the Honourable Minister from Nabbie. Now, nowadays adults as well as the government
sees that students are not interested in agriculture. I wondered why that is. They limit the students to books and pencils and pen, and if you do not, do well in this, what else is there? I think that instead of just giving them the mobile devices that you give them, the laptops, and you still limit their use to that laptops, you should give them devices like telematics. This is a map which you can pull up on your mobile device or phone, which shows where all your vehicles are operating and their fuel levels, as well as how much product has been applied or how much crops have harvested, and even if our piece of equipment will be broken down at any minute. I think that if you introduce this type of technology to the students in a classroom, they will be more interested and they will not be bored in a classroom, as many of you may say. Now, I would like to address some of the responses made by some of the honorable ministers. The minister from Chaguanas East mentioned that there are IT labs in the schools. Now, it breaks my heart to see that the ministers do not know what the programs they are putting in school are for. But that is why we are the opposition. We are here to enlighten and assist where you lack knowledge. Now, an IT class, before the laptops were introduced 5 years ago, an IT class existed, where they teach you what is our output device, what is our input device, what is our hardware, what is our software. It does not necessarily teaches you the responsibility, the correct responsibility of a mobile device. Now, the member from Chaguanas West also mentioned that the students may easily be distracted by a mobile device in a classroom. Now, where some students may be able to function better in a quiet environment, not every student learns the same way. Some students can listen to music hard, and they can't study. So I think that that point that you bring forth is invalid and should be removed. Now, the point made by the honorable member from St. Joseph, where he said the students use their mobile devices to take selfies. Now, I would like to say that the teachers do the same. I have experience where I'm in a class and the teacher pulled out her phone while teaching to say, "Yeah, gal, I'm in a class now." Is that the example that you are setting for students in a class? And you, the teacher, is supposed to tell the students that they cannot use their mobile devices? I think not. Now, I know some of the government may have some worries like the devices being stolen. So a teacher's device cannot be stolen. The laptops that you provide for the school cannot be stolen. Well, I have to tell you that in 2003, around in July there, in Sanigwani Secondary School, all the computers that was recently given to the school by the government was stolen at night. All of them. So why this cannot be done to a teacher's phone? You try to prohibit these students from bringing their mobile devices to school. Well, the teachers' devices can be stolen as well. The government may be worried that to make these mobile devices may be harmful to the environment. That's funny. Because even if the government bans the use of mobile devices in school, how does stopping the production of the companies that created these mobile devices in the first place? How that's stopping it? No, I don't think that will stop it. So to me, you should be able to compromise and not be pig-headed. Compromise. Educate the students. Give them technologies that could help them. that could inspire them, that could give them a taste of what they could be, Minister of Library. What they could be. Give them these technologies as I mentioned. People may say that there is no money in agriculture. There's nothing they can learn in agriculture. I think that this technology that I mentioned is very important, and they could learn.
Honorable Member, your time limit has now expired. Would you like 10 seconds to wrap up?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I am very honored to have shared this information with you today. Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Laventille East Mover.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, may I take this opportunity to thank all the members of this honorable House for permitting me to speak on behalf of this bill and by extension on behalf of our blessed government. Now down to the meat of the matter, Mr. Speaker. The member, the MP for Lahokata, spoke at length about how mobile devices can be used to track trucks for harvesting on the fields. But if I'm mistaken, Mr. Speaker, this bill speaks about how mobile devices can be used within a classroom setting for students. And then, Mr. Speaker, the MP then goes on to speak at length about how teachers misuse their devices, their mobile devices in the classroom, and how they can be lost. Is the member asking for us to regulate the use of the teachers' use of mobile devices as well, because we can't do that? Now, Mr. Speaker, the first thing I would like to do is to thank the Honourable Minister of Finance for his really quite eloquent contribution on the cost effectiveness and the cost that will be attributed to facilitating the implementation of these devices in the classrooms. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because if we were to move along with what the opposition is saying and to provide these mobile devices in the classrooms, and the finance minister has quite plainly said that the government cannot facilitate these devices in the classrooms because we cannot afford it, then who is going to pay these costs, Mr. Speaker? I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, who's going to pay these costs? The public. And this is not a cost that every person in our country can face. Mr. Speaker, this is an option that I am strongly against, because not only is it not cost effective, but it also contradicts the rights of a child to an equal access to education. This is because, Mr. Speaker, not every student will have the financial stability to be able to not only afford these devices, but to maintain and repair these devices as the years go by. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would like to just take reference to the laptop program which the government has implemented in our country in 2010. Now, on May 24th, 2011, the past Minister of Education, Mr. Tim Gopi Singh, has been quoted in The Guardian saying that that year, $10 million was allocated to reparation and the maintenance of these laptops, Mr. Speaker. And if the government is saying that we are taking these costs from the public, we will provide these laptops. I don't understand why the opposition is saying that we should force this cost on the public. Really and truly, if we are giving it to you, why take it away from them? Mr. Speaker, I stand here as not only the Member of Parliament for Laventille East, but also as the member and the representative for all rural communities, for every single undeveloped town or village and every family which income level makes it so that they can't even afford the actual school necessities at this moment, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I would just like to say in constituencies such as Laventille East, where the family type is mostly single parent, where the mother is the head and the sole income earner of the family, and where the family consists of, at times on average, 3 to 4 children. In such a case, Mr. Speaker, a mother cannot be able to afford such devices for each of her children, and she will have to if we implement what the opposition is saying. She will have to if we implement what the opposition is saying, because whereas with the purchasing of textbooks, a mother will have the option to either photocopy the textbook or to, as we all know, the hand-me-down system, where you have an older sibling and the book tear up, it rip up, but you still have to use that book and it's working, Mr. Speaker, it's working well. However, if we were to make it so that these mobile devices are mandated in the schools, these students will no longer have that option, because if it is, I have an older sibling in Form 4 and I'm in Form 3, I cannot now reuse their laptop, because if it is, we are confining the education system to these laptops. The Form 4 student needs to use this laptop as well, and therefore the mother has to provide for the Form 3 as well, and will have to provide for every other child that she has. Mr. Speaker, we stand here as not only representatives of the government or of the opposition, but we represent our constituencies, we represent the people of our constituencies, and as such we are supposed to be representing the concerns and the issues, and we are supposed to be passing legislation which match these concerns and issues of our constituents.
Would the honourable member give way?
Honourable
no, I'm
members,
quite sorry.
Your time has now expired.
As you can see, my time is expired, so I can't take your question right now. As I close, Mr. Speaker, I would just like to say that, yes, us as the government, we can understand the opposition's attempts at improving our education, because we are doing that as well.
Honourable member, your time has expired. The honourable member.
Thank you, Mr.
Speaker. The honourable member for Oropouche West.
Today, Mr. Speaker, it is not my intention to create any inherent antagonisms or divisiveness, but merely, Mr. Speaker, to expound on the fact that the usage of mobile devices in schools should not be prohibited, but regulated. And just to reiterate, regulated. Mr. Speaker, mobile devices are playing an increasingly important role in students' academic lives. Devices such as smartphones, tablets, laptops connect users to the world instantly, heightening, Mr. Speaker, heightening access to information and enabling interactivity with others. Mr. Speaker, so what makes mobile devices so appealing in a classroom setting? First, the mobile approach can encourage student engagement with the content. For example, Mr. Speaker, students can answer polls, tweet questions, and look upon information during classes. In addition to finding real-time information, an app can also provide a student with a convenient study tool, considering the fact, Mr. Speaker, that there are a number of publishers now putting their content online. Meaning, Mr. Speaker, the student can leverage course content on the go. Mr. Speaker, my brothers and sisters, mobile devices today are introducing exciting possibilities when it comes to digital learning. When I mention mobile devices, I'm largely referring, Mr. Speaker, to smartphones, tablets, and laptops. In an April 2010 study by the Few Internet and American Life Apparel and the University of Michigan found 60%, Mr. Speaker, and I repeat, 60% of faculty taught that students were motivated by classes that incorporated mobile devices. Mr. Speaker, I implore you not to be misled by any propaganda and machinery set forth by my government counterparts. Mr. Speaker, they went about within their contributions stating stuff like, as I quote the Education Minister, the member for Degemartin Central, she said, we should embrace the technology, Mr. Speaker, if we should embrace the technology, why does Clause 3 states would prohibit the use of mobile devices? Is that your insight of embracing the technology, prohibiting it? Mr. Speaker, she also stated that software is installed to monitor the use of these laptops provided for the students. But Mr. Speaker, aren't these laptops or the students finding some way or the other to hack and breach these codes whereby they cannot monitor them anymore? Mr. Speaker, this point put forward is invalid. Mr. Speaker, just to continue, the member for St. Joseph, he said, Mr. Speaker, taking selfie in class, me in class, right through the texting. But Mr. Speaker, because one or two individuals, Mr. Speaker, misuse the technology, that means that a macrocosm should pay for it. Mr. Speaker, it is evident.
Will the Speaker give way?
Mr. Speaker,
Will the Speaker
it is
give way?
evident, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is evident that my colleague apparently doesn't understand what's going on. Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member, your time has now expired, but you have an extension of 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, on my closing, I'd just like to reiterate what my colleague from Pointe-a-Pierre said. We on the opposition are not here to bash the government, but to work hand in hand with them. And Mr. Speaker, as the old adage once said, what binds us together is greater than what drives us apart. I thank you, my brothers and sisters.
The Honourable Member for Tunapuna.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So while cell phones are good, we don't deny that. We aren't trying to prohibit it. We're trying to regulate it. Read the bill now, regulation of cell phone mobile devices.
Will the Honourable Member give way?
You say that you aren't coming here to bash us, but that's exactly
Would the Honourable Member give way?
No, thank you. I just started. There's a lot more to come, so. The mere fact that we are debating this bill in Parliament right now means that there is an issue to be resolved. This issue of mobile device usage in schools by students needs to be addressed, which is why this bill seeks to address the usage or to regulate the usage of mobile devices in schools. So, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, today I'm coming with regional, local, and international examples on why phone usages are good. It needs to be regulated in schools today, so as to facilitate learning without distractions and increase in academic performance while giving a holistic development of students. So to quote laws in the Montgomery County of Maryland State in USA, it states that students that possess these devices in schools during the day must take them off and must not use them during class time. So isn't this exactly what we're trying to say in this bill today? The similarities of laws in the US and the similarities of the clauses in this bill show that while we aren't a developed nation as yet, we try to mirror those and to become like one of them. So according to the Guardian.com statistics now, schools that ban phone usage during class time, which is what the bill stated in regulation, sees an improvement of academic performance up to 15%. 15%. Yes, according to the MP for our Butch West, these students are more intrigued by these mobile devices. But clearly, they do not work. They do not work because if we take them away and regulate them, they improve. They improve. Research done in Birmingham, London, Manchester, all pointed to the fact that the regulation of these devices is a good thing. And while persons may argue that phone usage would reduce inequality through the use of technology, it was in fact the direct opposite. So following from what the member for Laventer West stated, Laventer East, to allow the phone usage, or allowing the phone usage, harmed the lowest achieving students and the lowest income students, which is fostering inequality. This is giving to the haves and taking away from the have-nots, which is what we're trying to mitigate through this legislation. Yeah, there are benefits, Mr. Speaker, but these mobile devices and technology must be introduced through correct measures, not just any student bringing any old device to class. It must be introduced through the Ministry of Education by the minister herself, and not through any old thing, for equality and good academic performance to be achieved. So while the government is not advocating for a reversion or backward progression to the Stone Age, a return to the Stone Age, no, we don't want that, which is why we're using this legislation to go forward, to become a developed nation, through facilitating proper usage so that these mobile devices could only be used when a teacher says so. So there will be no distractions, no inequality, and better results. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
The Honourable Member for Karina East. My bad, member. The Honourable Member for Miaro. My bad.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to open by stating an old proverb. You give a man a fish, and he will eat for a day. You teach him how to fish, and he will be set for life. This is what I have seen the government done, but unfortunately it has been done in a halfway method. They have been given the technology to the students, but unfortunately they have not taught the students how they should implement the use of this technology, these mobile devices within the schools. They always say, do not blame the device for what is going on in the schools, but to blame the students. My question is, what are the teachers doing? What is the purpose of the teachers then? Is it that the teachers are simply to implement information, to distribute the information? Or are they also supposed to stand to be a symbol of order within the classroom? I say if this is the case, that they are simply to implement information, then you can remove the teachers from the classroom, place a recording device, and the lesson will still be implemented. However, I see this as being very detrimental to its use within the classroom. We are now in an era of student-centered pedagogy. We're in a student-centered pedagogical environment. I want to quote a famous philosopher, Dr. Paulo Freire, and he believes in going against the banking system of education, where, and I quote, the student is not a spectator, but a participant. We want these students to be participants within the classroom. We want these students to be able to build themselves properly. How can we do that if we are restricting their use of the mobile devices? And I want to also point out to our watchwords: discipline, tolerance, production. Nowhere within this do we see punishment as a part of our watchwords. So why is it that in clause 5 we are speaking about punishing the student? Shouldn't we be implementing methods to discipline the student and be giving methods, Mr. Speaker, that we can help the child learn how to use these devices? They can develop their own sense of discipline. I want to close by saying this. Our environment is continuously advancing. We are advancing more technologically. That is the inevitable. We should now be implementing methods to control and not remove these methods. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now the member for Karina East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I count it an esteemed privilege today to amply elucidate how the passing of this bill will severely succor the security and safety services offered in our schools today, which does not only affect our students, but it also affects our wider community, since their parents and teachers are involved. The honourable member for Siparia said that the government is leaving no room for emergency or unforeseen circumstances. However, it has been proven that the use of mobile devices in schools does not ameliorate these emergency situations, but actually exacerbates these situations. The honourable member also gave us an intriguing anecdote whereby he said that he was left in school till a late time in the afternoon and he was not able to contact his parents since the administrative office was closed. However, I can assure you as a National Security Minister that each school has a 24-hour security guard in its presence at all times. Then, Mr. Speaker, I wish to tell you that these ubiquitous devices cannot prove to be more helpful in these situations of crisis. For instance, if we have 900 students in a school, and if each of these students were to call their parents or any form of relevant authority in the time of emergency, then these cell phone signals would become jammed, thereby leading to a system overload. This thereby stymies the administration from contacting the relevant authorities. Additionally, if these students were able to get through to their parents, a flock of parents would come to the emergency site, thereby increasing traffic congestion around the scene, which would impede responder vehicles. This also stymies parent-teacher reunification processes and hinders the lockdown and evacuation processes, as well allows for a great amount of chaos to ensue around the site. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, it can be seen that these students may miss life-saving directions which may be given to them if their cognitive processes are focalized on calling or texting their parents during this time, which can lead to a greater amount of fatalities and injuries during these emergency situations, thereby exacerbating the situation. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, dangerous rumors can ensue throughout society if these mobile devices are allowed to be held by these students during this time, which not only compromises the security of these areas, but also the integrity of these schools. Additionally, it can be seen, Mr. Speaker, that if these students are allowed these devices liberally, that some students may be persuaded to thief these devices, thereby leading to pilferage. And I ask the honourable members of this House, if such pilferage begins at such a young age, does not this then paint a cataclysmic picture for the future of our society? Mr. Speaker, it is also evident that these mobile devices can be used, or misused rather, during academic exams, which undermines the integrity of these academic institutions and the safety and security of our students.
Will the member give way?
I'm sorry, I will not be able to give way at this time. Thank you, though. Mr. Speaker, I then come to a point of paramount importance, which is cyberbullying. Cyberbullying has been defined as when the internet, cell phones, or other devices are used to send or post text or images intended to hurt or embarrass another person. In an article published in the Trinidad Guardian on Monday, June 27, 2011, and written by Gisha Kaulesa, the present president of the National Parent Teachers Association, Mrs. Zina Ramatali, expressed her views on this polemical topic of cyberbullying. She said, and I quote, "Based on our reports, cyberbullying is on the increase because every other day you are seeing something online." She then added, "This stemmed from primary school since pupils were allowed to carry their cell phones to school. And upon leaving the primary schools and entering into the secondary school system, the problem spiraled." Therefore, honourable members, I tell you that this bill is the platform on which we can assist and mitigate this issue of cyberbullying. honorable members, I then come to a grave threat of our students, which is allowed or facilitated by the liberal use of these mobile devices in school. It can be seen that students can be invaded and there may be offense of their personal privacy, which undermines the security and safety of all of our students. In this term, which was brought up by honorable members of the opposition, termed sexting. Sexting involves taking sexually explicit pictures of oneself or others and sending them to friends, or in this case, other students. There's a greater possibility of this happening if we allow our students to have liberal use of these cell phones. Thereby, if we cut down or we remove the medium effectively, we can then efficaciously remove this threat to our school students. Then, honorable members, I leave you all with a quote from the National School Safety and Security Offices in the United States of America, which can be easily applied to our situation in Trinidad, whereby they say, and I quote, "Changing policies under the guise of cell phones being a crisis tool for student safety is a knee-jerking reaction and is not the answer to school crisis preparedness that some may believe it to be. Therefore, I believe it is in this House's best interest to pass this bill so that we can combat all of these issues listed above, which are of concern to me as a National Security Minister and the member for Karina East. I thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Jabari. You said, I made a mistake. We are actually going to suspend for a lunch. We will resume at 1:30. Please.
Parliament Channel 11, also broadcasting on 105.5 FM.
We had advised